shut it down? The dark future of Rikers Island. Rikers Island, New York's infamous jail complex, once called the worst place on earth. For decades, it has been a symbol of violence, corruption, and human suffering. City officials promised it would be shut down by 2027. But as deadlines slip, scandals pile up, and lives are lost, one question looms. Will Rikers ever truly close? Or is New York trapped with this island of misery forever? Rikers has been in crisis for generations. Built in the 1930s on landfill from LaGuardia Airport, the jail was meant to solve overcrowding in Manhattan's notorious tombs. Instead, it became its own nightmare, a sprawling complex of 10 jails holding up to 15,000 people at its peak. Violence, corruption, and neglect turned it into a pressure cooker, where riots, deaths, and lawsuits became routine. In 2021 alone, 16 people died in Rikers custody. Suicide, overdoses, neglect. Many of these deaths were preventable. Federal monitors warned the city that conditions violated constitutional rights. Families begged for justice. Advocates marched, chanting, "Shut Rikers down." In 2019, after years of public outrage, the New York City Council voted to close Rikers by 2027, replacing it with smaller borough-based jails. The plan cost nearly $9 billion. The promise, a more humane, decentralized system. For a moment, it seemed like the nightmare might finally end. But closing Rikers was never going to be simple. Correction officers' unions fought back, saying the city's smaller jails couldn't handle the violence. Some local communities resisted new jails in their neighborhoods. And inside Rikers, chaos only deepened. The deadline began to look less like a promise, and more like a dream. By 2023, conditions were worse than ever. The federal monitor overseeing Rikers declared the city had lost control. Officers abandoned posts. Gangs dominated Ho, using units. Inmates lived in filth, often locked in cells for 23 hours a day. Federal judges began hinting at something unthinkable: a federal takeover of Rikers Island. New York promised to shut Rikers down. But each year, the crisis deepens, the deadline slips, and more lives are lost. So tonight, we ask the question that haunts every inmate, every officer, every New Yorker. What is the dark future of Rikers Island? Inside the empire of chaos, walk into almost any housing unit at Rikers, and you'll notice something immediately. It isn't the correction officers who run the floor. It's the gangs. Bloods, Crips, Trinitarios, Latin Kings. Each one controls territory, sets rules, and enforces discipline. To survive, new inmates quickly learn that loyalty is not a choice. It's survival. Over time, staff shortages and corruption created a power vacuum. Officers abandoned posts, sometimes outnumbered, sometimes bribed. Into that void, gangs stepped in, controlling food, phones, weapons, even access to showers. For many inmates, the gang was more reliable than the jail itself. Weapons flow freely through Rikers. In 2022, officers confiscated over 7,000 weapons, homemade blades, razors, even screwdrivers. Inmates carved them from toothbrushes, bed frames, and scrap metal. Every corner of the jail is a battlefield waiting to ignite. Stabbings and slashings became daily news. Some weeks saw more than a dozen violent assaults, and each story carried the same message. Rikers is a place where survival means picking a side or becoming prey. You couldn't walk the hall without checking who was watching. If you wasn't with a set, you was food. People think COs run it? Nah, the gangs run Rikers. Everybody knows that. There's days we're so short-staffed, one officer's watching 50, 60 inmates. What can you do? You can't stop them. Sometimes the best you can do is not get in the way. This is why shutting down Rikers isn't simple. Gangs have turned it into a fortress of their own. Each delay in closure gives them more time to strengthen their grip. Each year, the island grows harder to dismantle. To understand why Rikers became so uncontrollable, we need to go deeper into the very design of the island itself. Because Rikers was never built to rehabilitate. It was built to contain, to isolate, and to break. Violence by design. Rikers Island was never designed as a place of hope. In the 1930s, New York used landfill from construction projects, including material from LaGuardia Airport, to create the island. It was built on refuse, and from the start, its foundation symbolized neglect. Even then, critics warned, this jail will be out of sight and out of mind. The facilities themselves were designed like warehouses, not rehabilitation centers. Long corridors with blind spots, dormitories crammed with dozens of men, cell blocks stacked in endless rows. These layouts made violence inevitable. Officers couldn't monitor everything, and inmates quickly learned how to use the architecture to their advantage. Every corner at Rikers hides danger. Blind spots became ambush zones. Officers often responded only after the damage was done. The design made safety impossible, for both staff and inmates. Then there's the bridge. Rikers is connected to the city by only one road, the Rikers Island Bridge. That single access point became a chokehold. Supplies, officers, ambulances, all forced through one bottleneck. During riots or emergencies, the bridge turned the island into a trap. Lives have been lost because help couldn't get there in time. In a jail where minutes mean survival, Rikers' very location turned seconds into deaths. You always knew if something went wrong, you were on your own. By the time backup got across that bridge, it was too late. Rikers wasn't designed to heal. It was designed to isolate, and in that isolation, violence thrived. The very blueprint of the island was a blueprint for chaos. To understand the true human cost of Rikers, we must face its darkest reality, the mounting death toll inside these walls. Death on the island. Every statistic hides a name. Every number hides a face. Behind the walls of Rikers, death is not an exception. It is an expectation. Many died waiting for medical attention that never came. Inmates suffering from asthma, heart conditions, or drug withdrawal were often ignored until it was too late. A broken system turned treatable conditions into death sentences. Time and again, families were told their loved ones died from natural causes. But investigations revealed the truth: neglect, indifference, and systemic failure. In 2021, at least 4 people died after guards failed to respond to their medical emergencies. Some were left locked in cells for hours, even days, without aid. For families, grief turns into rage. They know their sons, brothers, and fathers weren't supposed to die this way. Their protests echo through the streets of New York. Rikers is killing people. Others took their own lives, driven to despair by solitary confinement, violence, and hopelessness. Suicide remains one of the leading causes of death inside Rikers. For every life lost inside, there is a family shattered outside. The cost of Rikers is not just measured in inmate deaths, it ripples through entire communities. Rikers is not just a place of detention, it has become a place of death. And yet, despite the mounting toll, the island still stands. In the next chapter, we confront the question no one in power wants to answer. Why can't New York shut it down? The politics of delay. In 2019, the City Council voted to close Rikers by 2027. The plan was bold: replace the crumbling island with smaller borough-based jails. But as deadlines neared, cracks appeared, not in the walls of Rikers, but in the politics surrounding it. Unions fought bitterly to keep Rikers alive. Correction officers argued closure would destroy jobs and overwhelm other jails. Communities pushed back against new jails being built in their boroughs. The city was trapped between promises and protests. Meanwhile, federal monitors continued to issue damning reports. Judges openly questioned whether New York City could ever fix Rikers. Some even called for the U.S. government to take control. The closure plan itself carried a staggering $9 billion cost. Construction delays, lawsuits, and political infighting pushed the timeline further and further. Each year, more money was spent, while Rikers' violence and death toll only grew. Everybody wanted the headlines, Rikers closing. But nobody wanted to do the hard part. Every delay, every excuse, meant more lives lost. Today, Rikers remains open. Its closure is still promised, but the date grows more uncertain with every year. Federal takeover looms, lawsuits mount, and inside the walls, people continue to die. In the end, Rikers Island is not just a jail, it is a mirror, reflecting what happens when politics, neglect, and indifference outweigh human lives. The future of Rikers remains uncertain, but one thing is clear. Its shadow will haunt New York for generations to come.